A few days ago, I did the 5 things that were absolutely driving me nuts in comic books, and I asked for your response. What's driving you nuts? What's getting in your crawl? And I had an overwhelming response to it. We're going to talk about 5 of those things that I thought were really interesting, what you had to say about it. These are some of the things that didn't make it onto the list that we'll talk about, but I certainly need to acknowledge that you absolutely hate right now about comic books. You hate the message. You hate events. You hate reboots and relaunches. You hate replacing established heroes. You hate that there are no good villains left. You hate that they're retconning all the characters. And you certainly hate that comic books are far, far, far too expensive these days. And I'm going to have a video up in the not too distant future talking about just how expensive these publishers are. When I lay out these numbers, your jaw is going to hit the floor on some of these publishers, but that is not this video. Let's get into stuff that you hate the most, starting up with number 1, terrible creatives. This is an example from Black Cat 7K. I want actual editors with spines hired, ones that throw back asinine scripts that tell artists to scrap a page and redo it because the design is garbage. That's willing to fire someone for wasting the company's time, making propaganda instead of making something that sells. And just this week, we had a comic book that should, in theory, sell itself. Predator versus Black Panther. The terrible art on this book is almost unfathomable. I just talked about Sean Damian Hill with Spirits of Vengeance last week, I believe. And this is actually worse. There's a moment where a predator jumps out of a tree holding the head of one of the Dora Milaje. Should be a big moment. Should look badass. Looks comical because it's so poorly illustrated. Another moment, there's like a force field around Wakanda. Shuri can't get in, and she's talking to a blind guy. And like this stupid predator is like, I'm going to grab her. He's like coming behind her, and she's like, oh, is there something behind me? And then he like, it's so poorly done. Any editor worth their salt would have gone back to Sean Damian Hill and said, hey, that page is supposed to slap, son. You need to put a little effort into it and actually make it look cool. This is embarrassing to the company. Obviously, we have bad creative all around. Lots of bad writers out there. I just finished up the Titans run from Tom Taylor, and while Beast World was certainly better than it had any right to do, the Titan series itself was awful, and he was on it for over a year, and they concluded it with this big Dark Raven escapes and takes over, and she's going to kill everybody. Guess how they stopped her? With hugs and friendship. I'm not even joking with you. I also finished up recently the Ram V Detective comic story. I do not know how the reality engine or the whatever engine that they called it that made everyone forget about Batman actually was stopped. In fact, I don't even know what it was going to do. I do know that it was connected to Crane, so it was going to make people scared when you were going to go back into fear state. But that thing was a train wreck. 3 years, no stories. It told one story and didn't even conclude it competently. And you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to break out Bad Boy West on this sumbitch because I'm putting Ramby on fucking Fraud Watch, dude. Yes, you had 2 good issues on Future State Swamp Thing, whatever. Your Future State ongoing mini maxi, whatever the hell ended up being, absolutely sucked. It went nowhere. We're never going to see that stupid Levi character again because you did irreparable harm to something that never existed. That's actually challenging and job well done, Ram V. And this Detective Comics run, it seemed like a weird foot-putting Ram V on Batman. On the Dark Knight, not exactly a hand-in-glove type situation. I was interested to see what he would do. And guess what? He fucked it up with his mundane, boring-ass storytelling that literally went nowhere for 3 fucking years. It's way too expensive. We're talking a single story arc that probably cost $180 that doesn't even end correctly. If you cannot get the new gods right, if there's one thing at DC that should fit Ram V's writing style and sensibilities, it should be New Gods. If he can't do that and make it exciting and worth reading and not an enormous waste of time and money, never bring him back because the dude is then a fraud. Just do your indie books, and there's nothing wrong with being really good at indie books and having that be your thing. Stop pretending you're a big 2 writer if you're never going to put any effort into it. Too many people have been swindled out of too much money at this time. You, sir, are a fraud at this point, and I'm fucking tired of defending you. Ugh, all right. Let's put Bad Boy West back in the box because I don't want to get too hot to handle for fucking YouTube here. But that dude has got me to my wits frickin' end. Next up, something that you guys hate, too many character variants. This is what Stone Tick 2515 said. There's 20 Supermen, 10 Batman, a dozen Flashes, Captain America's, Iron Man, and 100 Lanterns. Green Arrow has a bunch of arrows and an army of canaries. Every book is this giant family ensemble that they all feel exactly the same. Completely meaningless, since even if a character dies, they have a lineup of identical clones to take over. These families have gotten way too big. It makes sense that you might have a few human lanterns, and you might have 100 or even 1,000 alien lanterns to go along with it. Totally makes sense. The Green Lantern Corps. And for some reason, they think, well, we need to have one of every single type of person on this planet represented by every single superhero family because of diversity's sake. And I understand the idea or the sentiment behind it, but we're not getting good versions of these characters. We're getting cliches. We're getting caricatures. I think pretty much everybody is at their wits' end with the amount of just clones upon clones upon clones. How many times can a character actually be bitten by a radioactive spider in one fucking universe? One seems like a pretty, 1 in a billion type of chance. You have it happen twice. You're like, whoa, this seems a little odd. That shouldn't be happening in one universe. And now it's happening dozens of times in the same universe. Why do we have so many characters in the Superman family right now? Was Superman not enough? He's the alpha of all fucking superheroes. Now his wife has to have superpowers. He's got his son that's superpowers. He's got a Chinese version of him with superpowers. He's got adopted kids that are basically Superman. He's got another clone of him and Lex out there. Obviously, you've got President Superman. You've got Mon-El. There are so many different versions of Superman, not mentioning Supergirl and fucking Power Girl at this point, that it becomes overwhelmingly fucking stupid. You are tearing away at the fabric of the character. There's nothing unique or special about any of these superheroes anymore. And it absolutely destroys what's been built over years upon years. And they've got to get rid of all these stupid variant characters. There needs to be a culling of the herd. Throw them off in another multiverses and close it off permanently, or just kill them all off in a fucking crisis. I don't care. Marvel and DC have to start killing a lot of these characters off. Another thing that's absolutely pissing you guys off, variant and bait and switch covers. This is what Pirate Captain 1066 said, variant covers. When I originally started collecting comic books, a variant cover meant something special. It meant that the book would be something epic, mind-blowing, and potentially game-changing. These days, every Tom, Dick, and Jane have variant covers. You get some books that have over 100 of them, and that's just ridiculous. I'm surprised it hasn't killed the industry already, and it drives me nuts. And variant covers really are driving a lot of people away, because now comic books are more collectibles than actual stories that you're supposed to read. They don't even expect you to look on the inside. That's why we get a lot of these stupid bait and switch covers as well, where you look at the cover on Spirits of Vengeance, you're like, whoa, look at that. These awesome, Ghost Riders in there. And then you open the comic book and it looks like a third grader drew it on his lunch break. Like he didn't even have the time to actually put any effort into it. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing something, because the cover is essentially a billboard. That's the marketing material that says, hey, you should read this right now because this is a sample of what you're going to get inside. And then when you open up and it's completely inept, there are publishers that are just variant cover publishers at this point. I kind of like Dynamite. I certainly like what they're doing with Space Ghost and stuff. But a lot of the licenses that they have are just there to do variant covers. If you don't believe me, I dare you to go look at the Previews World solicitation information for Dynamite Comics in a given month. Make fucking heads or tails of it with the amount of variant covers, not for the stuff coming out that month, but for the stuff that came out 4 months ago, because they're still doing variant covers because we got to get a fucking cosplayer on there now. And you can see that the leadership and management don't care about the interior of the comic book anymore. They just care about the cover because it makes it collectible. And that is going to ultimately be one of the major downfalls and one of the main reasons that comic books as we know them die. Because the stories aren't worth reading anymore, because there's no effort. There's no money put in between the cover and the back cover. All the money, all the effort, all the oversight is just put on the cover itself. And it's absolutely ridiculous. These stories are meant to be read. There's a reason people still think about Detective Comics 27, an Action Comics #1, an Amazing Fantasy and all that stuff. It wasn't just because they had cool covers, and they certainly do have iconic covers to this day. Go in there and read them. Those stories are badass. Those stories created franchises unto themselves. And all the best artists right now are just doing covers at this point. It's very, very frustrating when you look at a book like A Predator versus Wolverine or a book like Spirits of Vengeance. And you're like, you couldn't find a better artist? Maybe not. Maybe they only want to do variant covers at this point because that's the only place that people are actually making money at Marvel and DC these days. Another thing that's absolutely pissing you guys off, everything is gay. This is what Wayne Tech 10 said. Characters can't be friends. Characters can't be heroes or compelling villains. If two characters, especially two women, are friends, maybe they shared a mission or are in the same place, they'll end up in a gay love affair. It's not a bigot thing. It's not homophobia. It has historically ruined every character they pushed it on. From that moment on, they can't be anything but gay. You can't downplay the gay because of Twitter. Ex-clowns will bash them. So they do gay fan fiction, and the overwhelming majority of the population says no. No more heroics. It's mainly their gay romance, and I have no interest in reading it or sharing it with my kids. And of course, the best example of what Wayne Tech 10 is getting at there is the Marvel X-Men franchise, which has been, I guess, hijacked by the LGBTQ community. It can only be a gay allegory now, and you really don't even get a lot of action storytelling. You mostly get people talking around and sitting going, you know what, I'm out and proud to be a mutant because I don't know if you got that. Mutant is actually code for being gay. And you just get gay fanfic. So they go out there and they get gay fanfic writers like Steve Fox and Steve Orlando and Leah Williams and Titty Howard and Vita Ayala. And you get this whole cadre of terrible fucking writers. And somehow they've managed to find another iteration of this. I'm looking at you, Jason Lowe and Dazzler, one of the worst comic books produced in modern history. The writing on that comic book was embarrassing. Go read the lyrics to a stupid Out and Proud fucking song that he had her singing throughout the entire comic book. It was embarrassing that nobody at Marvel, especially Tom Brevoort, the man in charge of X-Men from the Ashes, couldn't actually put his foot down and say, you know what? This ain't flying, cowboy. We're actually going to make a Dazzler story. We're going to make a superhero story. If you want to throw in some weird coded shit in there, sure, make it a little bit more subtle and let's focus in on why people are actually buying the comic book itself. Everything is fucking gay these days and people are over it. People have had enough of the gay shit. And that's not just a comic book thing, that's a movie thing, that's a video game thing, that's a tabletop gaming thing, that's certainly a TV streaming thing. It's overwhelmed the population at this point to where it's turning people against an entire community. I don't particularly have never really had problems with gay people, but like the Levitiqua fucking cult thing that's going on right now, I fucking hate. I hate what they stand for. I hate what they push for. And I hate the way that they try to influence and change everything going on in society, as if you have to ask them permission to do anything or take a stance on anything anymore. It's okay for you to be gay, but it's also okay for me not to be gay and not to want to consume gay entertainment on a regular fucking basis. In the past, not every gay hero was just only gay. Actually, it was quite rare. It wasn't really the point of it all, but that's now all that they are. It's all consuming on these characters and it destroys entire franchises. Go look at X-Men, see how things are going. Are things going well in From the Ashes? Do we believe that they've announced 22 X-Men comic books this early on because they're selling so well? They need 22 books out there? No, they are preparing to cancel all of them because they turn people off en masse with all the gay shit. It's overwhelming and it's ridiculous. The final thing that's absolutely pissing you guys and certainly me off, no stakes comic books. Vernon Hampton, 5863 said, my biggest issue is mundanity. Too many books that have, guess what, characters sitting around, eating food and talking, being on dates or on the phone. Yes, John Kent books. We read these books for escapism and adventure, action, not mundane bullshit you do every day. These are superheroes. They are not meant to represent us. They are meant to represent our struggles in an allegorical sense, but the struggle is supposed to be so much bigger. The stakes are supposed to be enormous that it's almost overwhelming the sense like, oh my goodness, The entire galaxy, not the world, the entire galaxy is at risk because of what's going on here. And we've been reduced to Jon Kent sexting in a bathtub with his boyfriend for 7 pages straight. And that's considered storytelling these days. And that wasn't in a Pride special. That wasn't in a Jon Kent, June special book that came out there. That was in fucking Action Comics. And this shit has proliferated way too many books. Go read fucking She-Hulk. Tell me what that's about. It's about her living her life. Hey, there's a place for slice of life, but it ain't at Marvel and DC. It's certainly not in superheroics. There can be little hints of slice of life. And certainly there's been that in Spider-Man and Action Comics where you do have relationships with Peter Parker and MJ and Clark Kent and Lois and all that stuff, but always used to raise the stakes, because now Lex Luthor doesn't have just anybody captured. He's got Lois captured, and we know that Superman loves Lois. What's he going to do? He can't put her at risk. Or we've got Doc Ock has MJ now, because we know the real identity of Spider-Man. Now that he's got MJ, what is he actually going to be able to do? Because he can't risk doing anything that could harm her or anything like that. Of course, they call that, what is it, fridging or something like that, the damsel in distress, as if there's never been a part of storytelling forever and ever and ever, because it actually creates stakes in a very easy to do manner. But they've taken those little things that were supposed to create relationships that built the stakes up later, and they've just made the book about that. You will have battles talked about that happen off fucking panel while people are eating sandwiches in books nowadays. That's how no fucking stakes Marvel and DC are anymore. Anytime Tom Taylor has a story, he resolves it with a fucking hug now. We literally had in Justice Superman, I believe, break the arm of Jay Nakamura, Jon Kent's boyfriend. Did he punch him in the face? No. He ran over there and gave him a big hug and said, "You seem like you're really grumpy right now, and I forgive you for trying to really maim my boyfriend there." And that was the end of the book. No conflict, no stakes, and you can't take any of this shit seriously. And I do want to say thank you very much to everybody for responding en masse. Great suggestions. I went and read them all, and there was a lot of them. Really appreciate that. If you need a reminder of where this all came from and the 5 things that are driving me up the fucking wall, I did the video. That's where a lot of these things came from. It's right here. Definitely check this out. And when you're done, go in the comments section and see a lot of the other stuff that is absolutely driving people up the wall, because you are not alone. You are not the only one that is done with comic books these days and hates what it's become.